Welcome to my first mod review, where we will be reviewing Mother of All Weapon Balance Patches. Now this mod seems to be a very vanilla-friendly mod that basically just does what Virtuous should have done to begin with, which is make pros and cons to the weapons. So one of the things that's missing from the game is game balance, right? For like the weapons, like not even just like magical versus physical, but just among the physical weapons themselves. So one of the main things this mod addresses are the attack rate and damage differences between the weapons to make it actually worthwhile to use different weapons. So for example, here are the default Daedric values. Now you can see that Daedric Dagger hits for 19 at base value, whereas a Warhammer only hits for 28. And the Daedric Dagger definitely attacks more than 2 times faster than the Warhammer, so its relative damage output is substantially higher. It also weighs a fraction of the weight of a Warhammer. But compared to the Longsword, the Claymore is only plus 2 damage. So it's like a third the speed of the Longsword, but it only has a damage difference of 2. Like not even, you know, like 2 times or 3 times damage. So this mod is definitely more vanilla friendly if you want to buff the other weapons that are usually considered to be much worse. So instead of the Claymore dealing 26 versus 24, it now deals 41 versus 24. So the longswords have been unchanged. These are kind of like the anchoring weapon that is relatively balanced, and honestly at like master mode difficulty, running a longsword is pretty fine, like without enchantments. You can still kill things in a reasonable amount of times. So this will not break the game and will be more vanilla friendly if you like the balancing on vanilla. So if you want to run like a huge damage battle axe or claymore or warhammer, the base damage on all of those is increased. The base damage on maces has also been increased as well. So mace before had the same damage as a longsword, but now it has 3 more points of damage. Now when you factor in 125 durability, sometimes you get an additional point of damage in relation to things if you have higher base. So like let's say it gets, you know, plus 4 at 125 and the longsword might get plus 3. So that's like an example of, you know, boosting durability can also scale these values even higher. So Warhammer might be in the 50s for damage. Now this is actually pretty huge. This makes blunt pretty relevant. Just from battle axe, mace, and claymore buffs, or I'm sorry, battle axe, mace, and warhammer buffs, we're looking at pretty decent values, but all the things are affected. And also, if you want to run the DLC, there's 2 patches basically, or 2 like optional files. So the base thing just hits like the general Oblivion weapons, right? So the base file just hits the general Oblivion weapons like Dwarven, Glass, Daedric, Ebony, and so on. And the deluxe hits all the DLC, so like Shivering Isles, Knights of the Nine, things like that. So you'll have to add both files to run that. And then if you run the unleveled patch, if you run balanced unleveled rewards, there is a patch for that. So there's quite a lot here. So let's check it out. To install the mod, what you will have to do is download the ESP file, throw it in Oblivion Remastered content dev ob data. In this case, it's already in there, so I just have to replace it. And then what you want to do is rename, copy everything, including .esp, open plugins, paste that in there, save it. And then if you want to add the deluxe version of the mod, which also hits the DLC items, like Shivering Isles, copy and paste that in there, do the exact same thing, rename it, grab the whole file name, put it underneath, save that, and then you are good to go. Let's check out these claymores, dude. Alright, so finally, claymores deal respectable damage. Now, there is a kind of exploits or tech, depending on how you view the game, where you can radial cancel and attack super quick with claymores. So depending on what you want the balancing to be, it's up to you. I'm going to go over the difference in values here. Alright, so Umbra, so longswords are unchanged, right? So Madness, this is for whatever reason, this enchanted one I made did not update, but the actual Perfect Madness Claymore is sitting at 51 base damage at 125 durability with 100 blade and 100 strength, which is pretty big damage actually. It is almost double that of Umbra, which is, you know, obviously it's less than double. It'd be 66 if it was double, but it's still a pretty substantial increase to kind of justify using this over a weapon like Umbra. And then Daedric Claymore is still a little bit weaker, which is what we expect because Perfect Madness is better than Daedric by like a point or 2. So damage difference. Now, if you want something vanilla friendly, I think this is like the perfect mod for keeping the relative power difference between melee and magic while also buffing the underpowered two-handed weapons. So let's do a quick demo. So first, let's do Umbra. Let's summon a Daedroth on Master Mode. I'm just going to attack it with basic attacks, so you can get a feel for the per hit damage, not using radial cancel at all. We'll kind of get a feel for the range as well. So we're dealing decent damage here. Then if we add like a power attack, get that debuff on for 30% more damage. We can kill in a reasonable amount of time, pretty quickly. It's not like super fast because it's not ramped or whatever. But now let's try the Perfect Madness Claymore. Just doing the same thing, going for basic attacks. So the attack rate is very slow on the Claymore, but it does have more range now. So you can kind of kite pretty effectively. It's kind of nice for that. And then if we do like a power attacks deal pretty big damage. Then the debuff, of course, makes our single hits deal pretty big damage. But if we want to kill super quickly, the Claymore actually can be tech canceled or radial canceled to be pretty insane. With the range increase, this is pretty overpowered. Well, it's not overpowered, it's just good now. It's just actually good. That is just base damage. That is no enchantment at all, no ramping at all, aside from the Blade 100 debuff that I applied on the opening there. So you could do something like this. Whoops. Sometimes you power attack if you like radial cancel wrong. But you can actually kill in a reasonable amount of time. Honestly, I think this is pretty balanced, assuming we do radial canceling. If you want to just go for attacks, you do have a slight range increase from this mod, so that's kind of nice. Alright, so what would I rate this mod if I were to give this mod a rating? Honestly, this is a pretty reasonable balance change that doesn't break the game. It doesn't add anything that's overpowered or do anything too extreme. This is how the base game should be. I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10 because it's vanilla friendly. It gives you a reason to use other weapons. It also gives you a reason to use blunts now. Now that Warhammers are the highest hitting weapons in the game, so if you were at 100 blunt, you could actually deal pretty decent damage per hit. Now obviously the attack rate is going to be slower than Madness Claymore, or any Claymore for that matter, but radial canceling is a thing, which can kind of speed up your attack rate. But this mod is a good step in the right direction. It definitely addresses the two-handed issue and makes them actually kind of fun to use. So maybe I'll start running this as my base mod list. And if someone asks, like, yes, I am running gameplay changing mods now, and I do think this is worth it. Because otherwise, the alternative is, like, you just have a bunch of weapons that are useless, and that's just no fun, right? Like, people want to do multiple things, run multiple races. Speaking of which, I am going to be covering a race mod that changes a lot of things for the better and rebalances the races in a very interesting way, so watch out for that. We also do have channel memberships if you want to support the channel and streams. You also get emotes. I think we have like 16 emotes right now for when I live stream. You can also throw them in YouTube comments, which is pretty fun. But yeah, that's it for now. Definitely like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.